Yes, I do, but I'm sorry.
I'm with the Israel Family Farm, co-sponsor of this event, and we have a booth outside with some oils, similar, and some incense, some homemade jams, and shea butter, and I believe we also have some skin and hair pomade. Thank you.
Where are you located?
We're at Fruitridge and Stockton.
And their logo is on your book, on your research guide book. There. So you can always find them on your book, okay?
And we're on Facebook as well. So like us.
And if I can just add just one thing, I'd like to ask you a question. If you can answer this question, then we're doing all right. Do you have power?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you this question, and then you'll know if you have power. If all of the path marks and stop and shops and Piggly Wigglies and all the places where you get your food from were to close in 15 minutes for good, would you be able to eat tomorrow?
Yes.
If your answer is yes, then you have power. But if you could not, you don't have any power. Because I knew of a nutritionist in the school where I worked in the Bronx. Her name was Sadie James. Sadie James and her sister had a little house in the Bronx with a little backyard, and she used to grow cucumbers and tomatoes. Sadie James had power. If you have a little plot of land where you can prepare your food, or if you grow on your windowsill, because we grow avocado in the Bronx, in our windowsill. Okay, so my question is, if you don't have power, it means that you don't have a way to eat your next meal without going to Pathmark or one of the supermarkets. So my recommendation is to get together with this family as quickly as possible to learn how you can start to grow things in your windowsill if you live in an apartment, or if you have a backyard, to start to grow food so that you can be in control of your destiny and grow what you can grow. So when Sister was telling me about the family, I mean, I was just so excited about this other piece coming that it was very important to me, because I see this as part of the future. All this information means nothing in a sick body. You ain't nothing but an intelligent sick person, soon to die. We have to change the way we're eating. And so I just encourage you to support the family and to make sure that they have everything they need, not just to maintain, but to excel and progress.
That's right.
Okay? So let's get
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Temperance. Yes, Temperance. And I am the owner and designer at Tempe Designs. I specialize mainly in accessories that are actually useful, such as my bag here, which is actually reversible, right? You can change the straps for however long you want it, short you want it. The bag expands, so you can go, when you go to the farm, you need to pick your vegetables, you can toss them in here at the farmer's market, wherever. So I call them my wanderer bags. You wander around, you put something, hold on to it, here you go. And so this bag, to me, represents what my fashion aesthetic is, which is I like color, express yourself, the colors you feel inside, show it on the outside, right? And then the things that you have can be functional, not just pretty. Don't let people tell you it needs to be pretty. If it has no function, then that's the best. No. That, to me, that's not part of it's not part of our heritage. You know, we want beautiful things, but we also have things that we use, right? So that's where I'm coming from. And I also do have a myriad of different types of accessories, from gloves to things for your hair, pins and jewelry too. But also I do alterations, I do costuming. I work with some of the college here, do some costuming. So lots of different things, so please come and take a look. And I also do lessons, sewing classes, sewing lessons. I very much believe that we should be able to take the clothing that we have to make something new. Don't throw anything away. You can always revamp it, you can change it to something. It's just skills that we have lost. And I very much would like, especially for our community, to bring that skill back because we're some very creative people. We just need the tools in order to express that creativity. So come on out, take a look, sign up. I have a sign-up list for folks who want to take some classes, and I think we can build something here in terms of us passing knowledge on that and regaining knowledge that's been lost. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Betty Davis. I'm not the movie star, but I love my African heritage. And so my business is all about you guys. I've been around for a long time. Somebody mentioned their mother used to bring them there when they were a little girl. I've been around a while, and everything I usually sell has something to do with Africa, African Americans, everything, because my goal is to spread knowledge and gain knowledge. And so I have a variety of things I bought today, which is probably like about that much of what I have in the warehouse. But I have shea butter chew sticks, licorice chew sticks, jewelry, a few African outfits, and some books. Quite a few little things. So hopefully you get a chance to come by and look. And I also want to let people know that tomorrow they're having a music festival at Southside Park from 12 to 8. I will be there also. But it's a good opportunity to hear our music and to enjoy yourself for the afternoon if you're free. So I thank you very much. Oh yeah, I have a website, I didn't know that was supposed to be That shows where I am, or my generation. And I also got Facebook. I don't know what I'm doing there, but I'm on Facebook also. So I'm gonna, I'm trying to learn how to do things and expand our website.
Did you bring me your
And you know what's interesting also, and this is why we can just take a little break. One of the things that I develop in the after-school programs for our children, many of the things that I encourage, is to teach the math, the science, and all of the things that deal as it relates to the academic skills. But the after-school program has to be totally different from the day program. And so when you're thinking of sister who is a tailor, who sews, who makes things, we need to bring her into the system to teach the math and the science, the fabrics, the sewing, the counting as it relates to sewing. Those are principles that you can apply to mathematics and science. You can read it. She can have a book dealing with tailoring, DVDs. She can be part of an after-school program. As it relates to the farm, you can, of course, you can see science, mathematics, as it relates. So you can teach math and science principles using the concept of farm, and they can come in, and financially it can be viable for them also because you're paying them to teach the children in the after-school program, because what the children are learning in New York in the after-school program is nonsense. So you might as well do something that's worthwhile. You have sister who is making jewelry, or she's making any of the other kinds of things, bring her in. And to begin to teach the children the academic skills that are related to what they're doing. And so what I'm encouraging is to bring in an engineer, to bring in a plumber, to teach them those, we lost our shop classes. Cooking. Those who are doing cooking, whatever it is. Children would love to go from growing their food to cooking their food to eating their food. They would just be so proud that they're eating something that they grew. I know I would. And so the idea is, what I'm looking out here in our community here in Sacramento, you have jewels amongst you.
Yes.
Recognize those jewels. We're always looking, as Brother was saying earlier, we're always going back to ancient Kemet to talk about a classical African civilization. But if you want to go back to a classical African civilization, go back to the plantation. That was a classical African civilization. Go back to the civil rights movement. That was a classical African civilization. We don't have to go all the way back to ancient history for classical African civilizations. We have a classical African civilization living amongst us right now attempting to do this. You're part of that classical African civilization because you are classy Africans. But you know something? It sounds good, we applaud. My real question is, do you really feel it?
Do you feel it? Yes.
Do you feel it? Is it there? Do you see what you've gone through in your life? And to the elders in the room, I am because you are. You know, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. You know, if I'm seen, it's because I'm on your shoulders. And I know that. We have classical African civilization here in Sacramento who have done all the work that needs to be done to make this happen. But you got to really feel it. You got to see it. I used to tell my daughters, my son, as it relates to choosing your partner, it's not about how you feel about them that's important. It's how you feel about yourself. And if I've raised you to be a princess, if I've raised you to be royal, there's only so certain things that royalty will accept. And so these are the kinds of things that we really have to start thinking about and supporting them and bringing them into the system more than just purchasing their items. Can we bring them into the educational system where we can give them contracts to bring their wares and their information? I used to bring brothers in and sisters in to teach how to make a drum out of a gourd. You know, the brother would start in the very beginning, they'd go to where they get the gourd, and then he'd teach them how to make the gourd, teach them how to make the drum, and then they started a music class. So they were playing their own drums. You see, and in there was math, there's science, it was everything. And that reinforced what they learned in the classroom as it relates to counting or biology or why are some skins available and why none are not. Please, Sister Bobby.
We got a village to build, don't we? We got a village to build, yes.
I have a village. I have 50,000 square feet over on brand new, about a week and a half, less than 8 days I've had it. And it's a creative arts learning exchange. I'm using learning exchange as a way of being my model. I'm using this training with pay as a way to be a model. I've been an instructor and I've been around a lot of people. I'm in the media arts. So
we're going to be going until about 6 o'clock. Is that everybody okay with that? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to be going a little bit later than what it says on the agenda, so we're going until 6 today. Yeah. All right. So without further ado, wow.
Part 3. I have another homework assignment for you. Now, what I would like to bring to your attention, this is an essay that I have. And basically, what it's basically saying is that, remember, here's 3 concepts. That by December 31st, 2013, we should have mastered and understood and be able to deliver the countries of Africa. Is there any way somebody might be able to turn this front light out for a minute so that this kid can be seen?
Not both. Not both.
Just one of them. No, the other one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
We also said that Medunetta is to become the classical African civilization language. Okay. I don't see us going around speaking Medunetta. But Kiswahili is the 7th largest language spoken in the world. It is also the largest African language. I have heard, and there are people who will misguide us by telling us that it has a lot of Arabic borrowings. And yes, it does. Not a lot, but it is based and founded in African thought. I don't want to use the word Bantu, but that's what they use. But Central African. So therefore, Kiswahili comes up out of the original language. It's spoken in Kenya and Tanzania. The sister or brother language to Kiswahili is Kikongo. that is the center of our world. So Kiswahili and Kikongo are two very important languages, and Kiswahili has already been introduced to us as a people. It is what we celebrate Kwanzaa. It is what was taught to me when I was a young cub in the Black Panther Party in its early days in New York. Kiswahili basically is an African language that has been exposed to us. I am in no way saying that we should not consider other African languages. All African languages are good. But when someone says, well, where do we start? Like I've had folk this afternoon come to me and say, well, brother, if I were to come to you and say, like, I'm just starting step 1, what DVD would you recommend? Okay, the same is true if somebody were to say, okay, brother, I'm just starting out. What should I start with? Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop teaches us that there are 3 things that a person will do to oppress you. They will take 3 things from you. They will take your history, they will take your language, and they will take your psychological factor. Your psychological factor is your values, your interests, and your principles. Okay? When someone takes away your heroes and sheroes and have you honor George Washington, when they have you worshiping and honoring and saying that you live in Thomas Jefferson housing, they have you honoring their values, their interests, and their principles. When they have gotten some of us to the point where we are willing to put down each other, to steal from each other, to hurt each other, we have now taken on their principles. You see? So history we got under control. Values we got under control. We know how to do that. But the language is the one thing that keeps us thinking sometimes as to where do we start. My recommendation, Medunetta, classical African civilization, we start by learning the alphabet. It's simple. We adapt Kiswahili as the practical spoken language worldwide. If I go to Brazil, my brothers and sisters are speaking Portuguese, and I speak English, we should be able to speak to each other in Kiswahili. If I go to Holland, and I speak English, and my brothers and sisters speak Dutch, we should be able to speak to each other in Kiswahili. Okay? And this is an article that speaks of the importance. It is adapted as a language in the UN. Now, there are many, there's a wonderful brother by the name of Tom and Mural Feelings. There are also other ways for our children coloring moja. Mbili, 2 rattles. That's the number system. I taught, one time I was in the Bronx, and I was walking down the street, and all of a sudden I heard these voices singing. Jambo means hello, Kwaheri means goodbye, Bawana means Mr., and Bibi means Miss. And I look across the street. I see these grown-up people in their 20s, but they were my kindergarten students. They didn't remember my name, but they remembered the song. And they knew they'd get my attention if they sang the song. I taught that song to my kindergarten children. 9 words, 10 numbers. We start there. Want to start? Okay, here's how we do it. Okay, just snap your fingers. Get that African now. If you can drum, you can snap. Okay? Here's how we're going to do it. Jambo means hello.
Jambo means hello.
Kwaheri means goodbye.
Kwaheri means
you can drum. Bawana means Mr.
Bawana means Mr.
And Bibi means Miss.
And Bibi means Miss.
Tafadali means please.
Tafadali means please.
Asante means thank you.
Asante means thank you.
Shule means school.
Shule means school.
Mwalimu means teacher.
Mwalimu means teacher.
Wanafunzi means student.
Wanafunzi means student.
Moja,
Moja,
Mbili,
Mbili,
Tatu,
Tatu,
Ne,
Ne,
Tano,
Tano,
Sita,
Sita,
Saba,
Saba,
Nane,
Nane,
Tisa,
Tisa,
Kumi,
Kumi.
Jambo means hello.
Jambo means hello.
Kwaheri means goodbye.
Kwaheri means goodbye.
Rwanda means Mr.
Rwanda means Mister.
And Bibi means Miss.
And Bibi means Miss.
Tafadali means peace.
Tafadali means please.
Asante means thank you.
Asante means thank you.
Walimu means teacher.
Walimu means teacher.
And Shule means school.
And Shule means school.
Mwanafunzi means student.
Mwanafunzi means student.
Moja.
Moja.
Emili.
Emili.
Tatu.
Tatu.
Ne.
Ne.
Tano.
Tano.
Sita.
Sita.
Saba.
Saba.
Nane.
Nane.
Tisa.
Tisa.
Kumi.
Kumi.
That's what we are. And as you may have noticed, when the students say, you know, if Brother Booker T is brave enough to sound like that, I can say it. See, one no Luther Vandross with this. So, I mean, I made folks feel very comfortable because we wasn't trying to sound like we were operatic, or we weren't trying to sound like we was going to get down. We just, and it was a very simple beat. Nothing, and that's why they remembered it. Again, the human mind craves order and arrangement. And therefore, when you give things in a simple way, it wasn't a complex rhythm, it wasn't a complex anything. As the brother drummer got up, he showed us a very simple. He not only that, but he showed us what the downbeat was. He showed us what the downbeat was. We were able to get on the downbeat, which is the rhythm of life. And once that happened, we had no problem getting up and dancing.
Right.
Imagine what brother would do if he had time with us. Which I hope he does with y'all. But this basically is what it looks like as it relates to Kiswahili. And again, I have burlets, they have cassette tapes, they have a number of different things. Take your time, make it comfortable. I started with words that deal with school. Simple. Made it very simple. As you could see, hello, goodbye, Mr., Ms., please, thank you. School, student, and teacher. And again, when you look at a word such as mwalimu, it's an individual. Okay, if you were talking about teachers, it's walimu. If you're dealing with multiple students, it's wanafunzi. Okay, children, a child, mtoto. Children is watoto. Okay, very, very, very straightforward. Start very simple, start very basic. But let that be our practical African language that we can then begin to adapt somewhere within this confines of the United States. Just keep it simple. Because one thing I notice sometimes is that in our excitement, we overwhelm ourselves. You know, I mean, we get deep, you know, we want to get all into it. And then pretty soon that energy fizzles out because we're overwhelming ourselves. We have jobs, we have children, we have things we're trying to do. Keep it simple. Get a word a day. Get a word a day. You know, and build from that. And before you know it, you have a whole bunch of words, and sometimes you might want to take 2 or 3 words. You know, decorate your home. You know, with those pictures that you saw, 1 mask, 2 rattles. Most importantly, have the children do it. Have them color it. Have them color it out, cut it out. Have them get some type of poster board or get some type of construction paper. Frame it. You know, put it up on the wall. Again, attempt to put all the things that children do and what you do on their level where they can see. We tend to put things up high. You know, but children are going to go like that to see things. Please put things on their level where they can see. You know, I mean, in the classroom that I had, people used to come in and they say, I mean, my goodness, why is everything down there? And I said, but look at the children where they are. You know, but see, we're so busy hanging things up high, we don't realize that people who are not that tall need to see it down low. These are just concepts and ideas that I offer us to think about as a people. As we're beginning our programs to teach our children math, counting, you know, forget them bears and forget those balloons. You know, go out and get somebody who does jewelry and get them to mass produce a football player. They want to go to Disneyland because that has been planted in them. When they have parties, they want to have balloons. Why don't you have some answer celebrate the birthday party? After all, it is about your life. Please.
Question about aunts. Now, from what I've read, the circle is kind of so the energy flows back into the body. So it's kind of you might want to introduce aunt, what an aunt means in terms of a cross and versus an aunt.
Well, an ankh represents life. And it's multiple things. It's not just the one thing. I could teach an entire class on the ankh, on the many, many things that it represents when you see it. The Greek fraternities are based on the ankh of life. Okay? They didn't understand it. You see, what the Greek fraternities and sororities did, that's why I get a kick out of black folk talking about they Greek. I get a kick out of that. What's that? A-N-K-H. Ankh. Ankh. In fact, in fact, on my shoes I have an ankh. Okay? And, you know, the idea is that the top of the ankh is omega. And the bottom of the ankh is alpha. So you have from alpha to omega, the beginning to the end is the ankh, which is life. But you see, what happened is that again, in their superficial thinking process, in their shallowness, the Greeks never understood the depth of the letter. The letter A represents the vulture. It has the sound ak, ak. And out of that came the letter A. And out of that came the fact that in the medunetta, when you're dealing with medunetta, and you're dealing with concepts that are going to pull medunetta out, what you're dealing with is the fact that inside the vulture you can see the letter A. Okay? For instance, here is the letter A. This, I'm sorry the lights are out, but I'll just explain it to you. Here you have the vulture. Her name is Mut. Okay? She is a vulture, a very sacred symbol. In fact, she is on the diadem next to the cobra on the head of the pharaoh.
Okay.
She represents all concepts as it relates, because although people compare vultures to death, really a vulture is willing to bite off her foot to feed her babies, as mothers are willing to give up their lives for their babies. See, it was symbolic. Every one of these symbols is picked for a particular reason. It's not just randomly chosen. But inside the vulture, you can see the script, the letter A. In the legs, you can see the A. In the body, you can see the letter A. In the headpiece, you can see the letter A. So what they did, instead of drawing a vulture every time we want a symbol, ak, the sound ak, what we're going to do is we're going to pull out certain scripts, certain things that look like the vulture. So every time we see that thing that looks like an A, we'll remember that that's the vulture, that is the mother. That she is, sisters, by the way, you invented math and science. Sisters invented math and science, because you got to understand that necessity is the mother of invention. So you have to ask yourself, for what reason does a man have to count? A male does not have a reason to count, but women have a reason to count, because you must prepare for your life cycle. Nature has demanded that something is going to happen to you biologically that's going to structure you to think a certain way. And so in preparing for your 28, 29, 30-day cycle, you began to count. Okay? And even today, to the sisters, y'all know that calendar, right? See, I only know because I watch my wife, my daughters, women. See, I can't tell you firsthand. Okay? Okay, I can have sympathy, but I can't have empathy. But I know that women are very conscious of numbers constantly, just by your life. You got, yeah, seriously, really involved in numbers. So in preparing for your life cycle, you began to realize that your 28, 29-day cycle literally was broken up into 4 phases. Okay, that's the creation of mathematics. Number symbology. You started counting. And everything else that comes out of that is higher forms of math that you also created, but you started mathematics as African women. You looked up into the heavens, and you noticed that there was a celestial body that also had a 28, 29, 30-day cycle, and that it had an impact on you. As the moon was full, it impacted your liquid systems within your body. In other words, you had a direct relationship between the moon and between yourself. And you also realized that it had 4 phases. Half moon, full moon, quarter moon. Every calendar that exists on the planet is based on a lunar cycle. Everyone is based on a lunar cycle. And so therefore the month becomes the fundamental principle of all counting and calendrical systems. Out of that calendrical system is going to come the month and the lunar cycle, upon who Mut is going to give birth to Khonsu, who is the child that is the symbol of the moon. Mut is going to become the basis for math and science. You see, science is knowledge, math is comprehension of science. Because inside science are all the formulas that you learn in math. Okay, now, let me take it to this further. You then look to an understanding of a something that would sacrifice itself in order to bring all things into existence. And so what you looked at is you looked at how you were going to develop your mathematics. And how do you develop mathematics? There's one thing that you do always in math no matter what. You measure. And what do you measure by? You measure by a meter. Meter is where the word mut comes from. Mut is where the word mother comes from, because if you substitute the two E's in meter for an O and an E, you have mother. So Mut is far more than just a symbol of A. She is a story about all things, all places, all ways. But because they're so shallow, they don't get it. So what they did is when they organized, you see, Mut was a sorority for the sisters. It was a mother's sorority. And in a mother's sorority, she became the patron. She became the leader. And so the letter A that came Ak is all the Greeks could deal with. They couldn't deal with Mut. So what did they do? They started the alphas. They started the omegas. Because they couldn't get no further than just a symbol. Letter A. It's not a lettered fraternity. The nomes, the cities of ancient Kemet had patrons of great entities of nature. Science is the study of nature, and nature is the essence of God. And African people developed their fraternities and sororities, their brotherhoods and their sisterhoods, around deep philosophical understandings of the world and the workings of the world around them. So I tell them, you shallow if you Greek. Let's get African. Let's get deep. Let's get deep, because y'all shallow. Okay, you wading in the water, I'm jumping into the heavy side. Yeah. And so when you have the symbols of Ma'at, when you have the symbols of Osar, when you have the symbols of Heru in Edfu, you're dealing with concepts that are so deep. It goes far beyond anything that this world has given you, and we are six-dimensional people living in a three-dimensional world. This stuff is that I'm experiencing. Yeah. I don't mean to drop the bad word on people's. Our greatest enemy in the world is not a color of someone's skin. The greatest enemy of the human family is ignorance. It just so happens that Europeans are some of the most ignorant people. So ignorant, and I don't mean that bad ignorant. I mean it's that they don't know. As the high priest told Solon, the Greek, he said, you Asians are perennially infants. Perennial means always. You are always children. You have never grown. You will never grow. You can't grow. Your calcified pineal gland keeps you locked. Not even in your infancy stage, because even infants are more intelligent than that. And we're living in a world that's demanding us to follow them. Like Malcolm said, you're not the measure of man. I wish to measure my manhood by. Please, sister, you had your hand up, and then brother.
Well, as I was working through my life over the years, as I came into consciousness.
Yeah.
One of the things I realized, like in the 90s, I got rid of my watch, and I have not put a watch on since. And I could travel from here to LA and say I'm going to arrive around 3:15, and based on the time I leave, I get there exact. Time for me is like, it's been right on. Sometimes I wake up at night and it's 111 if I look at the clock, or 333 or 444. So it's always consistent. So I really, and I think that really says that my consciousness is aligned in the right direction. So as you speak about that, I could definitely affirm that time, how it kind of plays and connects in that way.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And you know, the thing that we as brothers have to do is we have to look very deep inside of ourselves. I often encourage, we as black men, there's one thing that we need to do as black men. We all need to get together and go into a room all by ourselves and have one big cry. I'm talking about that ugly in the face cry. I'm talking about that boo-boo cry. And we need to let all this that has entrapped us all these years, that's been handed down to black males. Because you see, there are things that we as black men know we experience, just as there are things sisters have experienced, And I know for one thing that we have to let this out. And we have to learn, we as men, I think, one of the things that we as men have to do, and bring him in my court. He's a yarner. He's been dead 20 years. Bring him anyway. Exhume his body. They'll bring me up in court. They'll try me and find me guilty and give me life. The lawyer said what he did. Life and death. So I ain't giving up none of my life until I don't care, because there are things that we've all had to do as black people, particularly black men, to get where we are. I wasn't born like this, I became like this. And I'll be very honest with you. But it's going to take a while before I tell my story. And the same way every other, and that's why I don't judge nobody. Because we all have our story. We all have our struggle. And we do what is necessary to get to where we need to get. And my daddy did the same thing. I did the same thing. And there'll be countless numbers of other people. We got to forgive our people and ourselves. Even if what they did, even if what they transgressed against us hurt, we got to free them to free us. Because we're carrying around too much baggage. We're carrying intergenerational baggage around with us. We're carrying stuff that we should have let go a long time ago. See, other cultures have let their stuff go because they don't care what they do. Please, brother. I'm sorry, was your question about the Ankh?
I was moving towards what you call the sacred geometry.
Yes.
You spoke of mathematics and sacred geometry. I Googled into there and found out so much more of the, about math and science and all these things that you learn just from knowing geometry. That's, being overlooked a lot. There was something else, but I'm going to leave it alone. But just to say that there's a satellite technology discovered a lot of Kemet. That's not that's covered, and there's so much of a civilization that exists there, and pyramids that existed there. And I want to speak of one last thing. Actually, one thing. There's this band around the world where you could find the Dogons, the Aztec, you could find the pyramids. There was this band around the world that actually all these monuments from Easter Island to everywhere that had all these big monuments. They all kind of have a communication device that actually, and it's not like they're up here or down here. They're just basically on this one band of land of the earth, and it circles the whole earth, and you'll see that all of those monuments, from the Aztecs to the China to the Dugons to the things you find in Egypt, all were built in that same scenario. So there's a technology, old technology, and to tell you one more thing, the Bushes, when they retired from the U.S. presidency, they bought up all the aquifers. And through the aquifers, you have all this ether is spread around. I mean, I'm texting you and you're getting it instantly, faster than what we call light. So there's a technology that we're all connected to that it still exists, that people, when they talk about the elements of the earth, they didn't teach you about the ether. And the ether is what we're using right now. I mean, all our technologies is basically set up on this ether. Now, not the ETH, it's the ATH. The old technology, the old knowledge. So I just want to see if there's anything you can share on that.
You know, they have found that there are underground tunnels that unite West to East Africa. That when the desert was encroaching on the grasslands 10,000 years ago, that there was such a lively trade going on in Africa that they did not want to lose it, the trade. So what they did is they began to dig underground tunnels, and then at miles down the road they would come up, and that is where the oasis comes from, to refresh themselves, to get fresh air. And also that model of the tunnels underground is what the subway systems are based on. That's the technology that the subway systems are based on, how you can go underground and carve out a tunnel and to be able to move for quite a distance. West and East Africa are combined. They've shown that in satellite, that there are underground tunnels between East and West Africa. This is just simple where we have been as a people. But see, we don't know our history. And so therefore, not knowing our history, we are caught in a situation. I just want to show you something since you're bringing this point up. I just want to show you. I take notes on astonishing things about Africa. Here's something that was taken out of a book called When We Rule by Robin Walker. Okay. You see, Dr. Clark used to always say, you know, we get caught up in Egypt because it's very exotic. Dr. Clark used to say all of Africa was great. At the same time that pyramids were being built in Kemet, there were things going on in West Africa, such as the Nok culture. Let me just tell you this, right here.
New Israel.
Since 1994, there's yet been another Nigerian kingdom previously covered by centuries of forest growth. It has been described as Africa's largest single monument. At Eredo in southwest Nigeria, there was a huge earthen wall with moated sections. This encircled an ancient kingdom or city. From the base of the ditch to the summit of the rampart, which is up on top, measured 70 feet, which is basically fundamentally 7 stories high. Mark McCaskill of the Sunday Times, the rampart was 100 miles long and formed a rough circle enclosing more than 400 square miles.
That's right.
I didn't learn that in school.
They want you to learn it either.
This is Nigeria. This is existing many, many years ago. The builders shifted 3.5 million cubic meters of earth to build just the rampart alone.
Wow.
You're talking about 400 miles. Now, 400 miles to me says that this city was the size of the distance between New York and Washington, D.C.
Wow.
That's how big this city was. Now, who we dealing with here?
Us.
These are the people that say we primitive.
Okay.
Well, this is their excuse for taking us. We should be happy they took us. This is what they say, because we were civilized by them. And yet this is what they found. What type of mind builds a city 400 miles? Think about it. That's who we are. We are whales in goldfish bowls.
The guy from Timbuktu was the richest man of all time.
Mansa Musa.
Yeah.
He broke the World Bank.
Yeah, I heard about him giving up gold.
Africa is not a poor continent. Africa is poorly managed.
Okay.
So you see the turmoil in Timbuktu right now, and all that right now. So they're after the oil and the other riches that are still right there.
You see, please, brother.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, that's cool, brother, because we get excited on this now. I know. That's what I came to do. I came to excite us.
Yeah.
I was watching one of your videos, YouTube videos, you educating our youth for the 21st century, and you're talking about all the testing that's going in, how America It's going below
Yes, yes.
below all other nations.
Oh, yeah.
because You deal with multidimensional thinking. And
Absolutely. There's a TIMS test. It, and it's a international math and science exam.
Right.
And about 169 nations take this test. Now, we're not talking about black children. We're talking about children of European descent. So this ain't black children. Out of the 160-something countries that take the test, there's only 12 countries that do worse than the United States. We're talking about white children, children of European descent. We're talking about Asian students. See, what we don't know is that they cheat. I'll give you an example. I was at a conference and I was talking about testing and testing skills, and it was really geared towards psychologists and psychiatrists, talking about special education classes, things like that. And they came, and at the end, this man of European descent came up to me, and he said, "Man, you know, I like your style." He said, "There's not many people that are willing to talk the way you talk, you know, just because," he said, you're in this room, you're the only black person in this room, and you know, you kind of presenting to us with respect, but anybody with half a mind knows exactly what you're saying. And he said, well, there were two things that came out of that. He said, what do you know, I mean, what is it? You came in this room alone to do this presentation. What inspired you? Psychologically, I'd like to ask you, what was it that gave you the courage to speak the way you spoke? You came in alone. And I said, look behind me. And he looked behind me. I said, do you see Malcolm X behind me? He said, I do. No, I said, he was just, okay, now what do we do next? I said, I see Malcolm. You see Harriet Tubman back there? I said, I didn't come in here alone. I came in here with all my ancestors. And I said, I never walk alone. And I said, you want to know something? And then I pointed to a point on the wall. I said, you see, who that? I said, that man's name is Nat Turner. So if anybody in this room decided, Nat gonna talk. You see. And he looked at me, and but he said, okay, now that we've met each other, he said, look, there are families that come to me around testing time, when it's time to take the SAT and test. He said, and they pay me $1,500, $1,200 first visit, $300 second visit. And he said, what I do is that I certify their children learning disabled. So that when they go in to take the test, if you're learning disabled, you have extra time on the test. You have time and a half. So when our children go in with everything that we're struggling with, and we have 3 hours, they have 4.5. And then he said, after they take the test, if they're the ones that even take the test, but after they take the test, they come back to me, I write another letter, I decertify them that they are now out of special ed, and they go back into their regular class, and many of them go to Harvard and Yale and all the other universities, because to memorize the test, questions, they memorize their 10 questions, and they immediately leave to go back to a certain location, and they write down the questions and the answers on the test. The 10 of them together create the 100 tests, and then they sell the test to people who want to become radiologists. Wow. They cheat. They're not that intelligent. And honestly, with due respect to Asians, they're not that intelligent either. And we give them much too much credit. I'm not trying to diss them. I'm not disrespecting them. I'm only dropping it like it's real, because that's what's going on in the world that we're living in, and that's why people are dying. The reason why they use white mice, albinoid mice, is because the result is going to be for white people, not black people. Right. Because if they really, we need to get our researchers to go in and use brown and black mice, because that's what's going to have the result for black people. The reason why they use them pink-eye, white-hair mice is the result is going to be for white people who are albino, not for black people. So the medicine they give us ain't for us, it's for them. And so we have to understand, but not to build our greatness on their instability, but to build our greatness in the potential we have to be the people that we are. Because I don't want to ascend in my life by stepping on someone else's neck. If I rise, I want to rise because I got the right to the degree. I like a work ethic. I like to study. I like to work because I feel good about the results when I can feel that the work I'm doing is appreciated by my community, appreciated by our people. There's something wonderful about that work ethic, and we have to get a work ethic. You know, we have to put our best into our business. Any one of you who purchased a DVD from me, if you contact me and you say, brother, it ain't working. What's the name of the DVD? I send you DVD. You say, should I send the one that don't work back to you? No, because that's only going to make you pay money, because you got to send it back to me postage. I am responsible for the goods that I give you. And if it ain't working, I'll get it back to you. And a lot of times I'll throw another DVD in just to apologize for putting you through it. We got to do good business with our people. Just like we spend our money with our vendors, vendors have to be good business people. When you walk away from a vendor, you got to feel like you got a good deal. You have to feel like, wow, this is good, because I know how much I pay for those blank DVDs. I know how much I pay for that oil. I know the profit that I'm making. I'm trying to make a living, not a killing. And we punish our own people for what the society has done. So while I am forceful in supporting our vendors, I'm also forceful that we do good business with our people. And where we can barter, I'd like to barter. If you got something I want, and you got something that I want, we don't have to exchange money. Let's exchange goods. Right. If that's possible. Please, brother.
So one thing you're not an advocate of is prejudice.
Is what?
Prejudice.
Prejudice? No, I'm prejudiced. I'm not.
Let me say it differently, because that's okay. I mean, there's no good, bad, and all that. It's not a. We had African American for better balance, for balanced health.
Yes.
So we're doing this thing for us.
Right.
And this conversation really is about just to better our mind, body, and souls, right?
Absolutely.
And it has nothing to do with them or they or.
Yes.
We're all one piece of humanity, as you said earlier.
Yes.
So it's not us against the world.
It's not us against the world, but it is us for us.
Us for us in the world, right?
Yes, in the world. Like I'm prejudiced.
Okay.
I'll tell you in a minute.
I can understand you.
If for all the Europeans they've done to me, okay, you are not going to come into my presence and I'm just going to trust you. I got to hold you until you can prove yourself to me. And if you're the type of person that you get offense because I hold you at bay, because you're personal about it, then you're not looking out for my good. Because if I were not married, and if I were involved with a sister who had a bad history of relations with men, and if she should hold me at bay until I could prove that I was not like the others, she should.
Right. That's right.
Because she has a track record that she should hold people accountable because of the nature of her history. And I am not looking out for her better if I'm going to take offense because you holding me at bay. In fact, I should tell sister, yo, sis, hold me at bay. Make me prove myself to you. So that when you embrace me, you're embracing me. I say the same thing to Europeans. I'll give you another example. I did a fundraiser for Haiti last summer. European Americans were invited. This was in New York, in Harlem. Europeans, people were invited. Everybody was giving money for the Haitian community and nation. And they asked me to come in and do a presentation on melanin. African American. Wonderful brother. I looked at him, I said, brother, you know who you're asking to come up in there, right? Okay, because we ain't changing the agenda because there's white folk up there. He said, no, but they need to hear what you have to say, and I've always appreciated the way you approach it. So come on, man, do your thing. So I went up and I did my thing. And there were some peoples of European descent off to the side. Well, there were Europeans in a number of places, and a European woman raised her hand. And she said, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. And I said, you know something? That's good. Because I was going to ask, and I was wondering if I was doing my job. And you just verified I'm doing my job. Because I'll be honest with you, and I'm saying it with no emotion, I'm saying it simply. Because I'm doing this for your own good. I'm speaking to the peoples of European descent, because you see, if you're going to come and sit yourself in the middle of Harlem, in the middle of black people, listening to our story, and you think you're going to feel comfortable, you must be out your mind. Because you see, that's why we don't want you coming up around us any, because you think we got to change our speech. And I'm not changing nothing. I'm going to hit you the same way I hit anybody else. And I said, by the way, let me tell you, I went to a conference on spousal abuse. And I sat there and I listened to the horrific things that men do to women. And I said, I'm sitting there as a man listening to these things. I'm a man. But you see, and then I said, well, let me put it to you another way. I threw a rock in a pack of dogs. The only one that yelped was the one that got hit. If I'm sitting as a man and I know that I have attempted in my life to honor sisters, and I am not part of the story that they're telling, I have no reason to get upset. Okay? The only time I should get upset is if I got hit by that rock that somebody just threw in the back. And so I returned back to her, I said, so, let me put it to you like this. If I just hit you with a rock, you deserve to get hit.
At least on your count.
Yeah, because if you are the type of person I described, then you deserve to hear what I got to say. And if you're not, I'm not talking to you, so why are you getting all concerned about this?
I just thought that should come up. Thank you.
Well, you know, I'm very honest with you. And see, and you know something? I'll tell you something else. The same woman was the last one to leave. She stood in the back and talked to me the whole night. After everything was done and I was in the back, she came and she was a teacher in Mount Vernon, and she was telling me stories, and she had a friend that came with her. There were three of them that came together, and her friend was deeper in the understanding, and she said, we'll talk to her later, because she's not getting it. But the three of them stayed there, and the particular one that I'm talking about, she said, you know, we as white people, we have a lot of work to do. We are very, very troubled people. And we need to get things to happen. And she thanked me. And a lot of black folk thanked me too. See, because a lot of black folks started to sink in their seat when I started getting on it. Because, you know, they were in the room too. And they were getting a little concerned with where the heat was going at this time. But see, I'll be honest with you. I don't care. And I care as a human, but I don't care as it relates to truth and justice and righteousness. You see, and again, it goes back to Malcolm. It goes back to all those that put everything, it goes back to our ancestors that put everything on the line for us. Okay, and I am not going to play games now that I'm where I am. Our ancestors put everything they had on the line. They took one step knowing they might have been shot down, just so the one behind could take two. And many were, and many horrible things happened to them. And out of that honor, out of that respect, and this is why I say to us here in Sacramento, what are we willing to do now? What are we willing to do now to make this happen? How inconvenient have we been?
Thank you.
Okay, we talk about, well, I can't talk about Sacramento, but in New York City, we say, oh man, that's too far away. You know, take the bus. Bus? No, I'm gonna take cab, that's too far away. I say, you know, Harriet Tubman walked from the south to north for her freedom. What are you willing to do? She walked from the south to the north. And you talking about a cab 20 blocks? What are we willing to do now, where we are in our life system and what we've achieved? What are we now willing to give up? Our ancestors gave up whatever money they had in order to build a public school system through the Freedmen's Bureau. They gave up money that could have gone to clothing. They gave up money that could have gone to a lot of things that would have made them feel good about themselves, but they had a different agenda, and they felt that something was more important. What are we willing? Are we willing to do that 10%? Are we willing to support our vendors? Are we willing to bring them in and to make sure that they get the kind of monies that can continue the lifestyle that they're having? Are we willing to join brother in his building to make sure that nobody's saying, well, we gave him a building, but nobody's using it?
Yeah,
Because whatever they give you and you don't use, see, I was good for that. If you gave me a budget, and you gave me a budget of, let's say, 20, when I was in the Board of Ed and I had a budget, you gave me $25,000. I came back and asked for more. Because even if there was one time I was 12 cents. I bought a pencil. And then asked for 2 cents because it was 15 cents. I needed 3 cents. You see, my thing is, I don't play. And brothers and sisters, we have to get to the point where we're not playing. And once them people understand we're not playing, they respect us. Someone go over that study guide. So that you can real briefly just look at it. It's set one to the bottom. My brothers and sisters, please get a card. Email me. I'll send you. You'll get my study guide, but in the back of my study guide is my DVD catalog. That will let you know some of the things that I have.
Now we do have the curriculum guide here. They can take home.
Right, but how about the DVD catalog?
Yes. Yeah.
It's there. Okay.
You gotta make sure that this is up before you get the budget.
I got it. Okay, thank you, brother.
Everybody should get that.
Also, on my card on the back, I teach the study guide every Wednesday from 9 until 10 Eastern Standard Time, which is 6 to 7 your time.
You teach it online?
Online. Okay. And it's the address on the back of the card, www.townzonetv.com. Yes, in fact, I'm going to. And
yeah, that's it.
Wednesdays from, well, your time would be 6 to 7 p.m.
Wednesdays.
On Wednesdays, www.townzone. We ask for a statement of support of $10. After that, we have a Blog Talk radio show, which would be 7 to 8 your time. And what we do is that we have questions and answers. Because during the Town Zone TV online, I'm trying to talk about so much, interaction with the community would not be feasible. So I use that next hour to go on Blog Talk Radio, which is www.theafricanhistorynetworkshow.com with Michael Imhotep. And if you want to call in, the phone number is 914-338-1375. The website is www.THEAFRICANNETWORKSHOW.com. Yeah, it's the African History Network Show.
But you struck out the African.
What's the
African Network Show?
The African Network, no, the AfricanNetworkShow.com.
What's the phone number again?
338-1375. Area code 914.
Okay, let's just walk through this. You'll see the information. I don't know if I have it on the top of yours, but that's your guide.
Somebody turn the light off, the second light. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, basically, these are my college courses. As you can see, I start by explaining is broken up into 3 parts. The Introduction to Humanity in Africa. That's a curriculum, a systematic view of African-centered curriculum. The next one is called 40 Seasons, which is a 40-year curriculum. The DVD catalog, that materials that support the curriculum. My DVDs here also support the curriculum. And basically what I've done is I give you an introduction, and then I give you books. Introduction to African Civilizations, John G. Jackson. Wonderful Ethiopians, When We Ruled, The Star of Deep Beginnings. The Memphite Theology and African Cosmology of the Bantu Congo. Okay, as you go through the guide, you'll see this. These are the books that's going to pertain to this particular theme. The course syllabus. Is this the one that you have?
Yeah, we have it.
Okay. And so basically what I do is that in... Yes. See, what I do is that I give you the class question. What is the question? How did Africa impart the history of the earth? Okay, and then I give you the readings. Because I don't ask you to do all the readings. I give you chapters and pages to read. And I tell you what book to read them in. Class number 2 deals with the African, as you were, origin of life in Africa. There's the class question, the readings, and the citations. Class 3, the origin of the planet Earth. Because you see, brothers and sisters, to understand African cosmology, to understand who we are, you don't start with the Earth. You got to go before the Earth. That's the only way to understand Africa. Because Africa is only a geographic location on this planet that our ancestors called Geb. But like I say, we're not earthlings, we're starlings. We were always, we are, and we shall always be. And so to limit yourself simply to your existence as human beings on the planet, it's of no real regard, because you'll never even understand how you got to where you got if you depend on that shallow information. So I take you off to the cosmology, and then I bring you to the earth. You see, and then on earth I bring you through the development of the earth. And then I bring you to the botanical life. And then I bring you to the age of the fishes, and the age of the amphibians, the age of the reptiles, and then the age of the mammals. And then I take the human family through the stages of its development. And I talk about the loss of the hair and what the loss of the hair on the body did, and the changing of the morphology. This is the science that you have to understand about this. Otherwise, you'll never understand who you are. Okay. Okay. Pop it to the top. But just to break this down in a way that you might be understanding it. We go through all the different forms of the human family, give you some background information. We talk about carbon dating. Okay, but then after Africans got themselves together, then they took their show on the road. Okay, the life history of the Caucasoid. How did they come into existence? Okay, in your bottom 2 layers of your epidermis, we spoke about your 5 layers on the epidermis. Your bottom 2, you have a biochemical known as 7-dehydrocholesterol. 7-dehydrocholesterol rests in your 2 bottom layers. When the light and heat energy hits your skin, it pulls in the light and heat energy. And that's what transforms inactive vitamin D1 and D2 into active vitamin D3. And that is what allows the calcium to be absorbed in your body. And as we moved into the colder climate, we had to change our pigmentation to let the little bit of sunlight that came down be able to penetrate. And that's what made us depigment ourselves. But it may not happen here, but in New York City we do it all the time. I am now getting darker than I was in February. And in February I'm going to be lighter than I was in July. Because in the presence of the sun, my carbon atoms are joined, it gives me a tan. When we were hair-bound, we started to lose our hair. What had to happen is that hair is a very perfect heat loss system for the body. However, when the hair began to move because of our life systems, we had to make up for it. So to make up for it, we added the eccrine glands, which are sweat glands. We added glands, but in the absence of hair, the black hair on a gorilla or an ape is the melanin in the hair. But that's why I tell Rush Limbaugh, you better be careful who you calling an ape. Because if we shaved an ape would look more like you than me. Because you shave, look underneath your arms of an ape. It's pale. Because the black melanin is in the hair. You see? And the only place that a gorilla is black is in the face where it's skin. See, this is all science. This ain't personal. So when we lost hair, we had to do something, and that blackness of what the hair contained now began with the skin. In other words, a gorilla doesn't have black skin underneath the hair. It has pale skin because the black hair is what protects the pale skin of the gorilla. But where the hair is lacking in the underarm, you can see the pale skin. Look just like Rush Limbaugh. Okay, look like Glenn Beck. That's who he looked like. That's science. I'm not mad at him. And so we go through, and then we move across origins of civilization, the dynastic periods. This is all in your guide here. But I want to move the Moors. We move through the whole system, and here's the 40 seasons. This is my life's work. The temple of life, an idea whose time has come. That's wrong. Better save that. Okay, and so you go through 10 cycles, and each one will take you through. The DVDs I have are really focused. The atomic consciousness, the Ma'at. I have some DVDs on Ma'at. I have some DVDs on the hidden wisdom. There is a direct relationship between the African woman's womb and black holes in space. And when a baby is born in gestation, the baby is connected by the umbilical cord from its navel to the mother's placenta attached to her body. The messages that are sent between that is the same way black holes pull in light and heat energy. And the same messages, they're almost black holes are like intergalactic subway systems. The same way a African woman's womb is an intergalactic embryology system. It sends messages to the baby. That's why mothers who are expecting, you got to be careful what you eat, you got to be careful what you say, you got to be careful what you think. We're talking about your third year. Okay? When your mama say, you see what I'm talking about? She wasn't talking about the first two. She was talking about the third eye. Remember when you're experiencing a bad situation, you just, yo, this don't taste right to me. It's not your taste buds you're talking about. Okay?
Do you recommend we start from the beginning, or we could jump in at any time?
It's your choice.
Okay.
Yes. In a sense, there is a way that you could start from the beginning and take it right through, which might be a good recommendation. But if you feel the need to jump around, you can do that too. Because every one of the lessons, no matter where you find them, is not only independent of each other, but they are interdependent of each other. So it's according, because you could study it in capsules and just get information this way, like that. So it's all according to how you'd like to do that. But that's the study guide and how it was developed. And it reflects back on the hidden color study guide that's in, I realize it's in your guide there. So between that, this is when people say to me, where do we go from here? What could our curriculum look like? This is what I'm recommending that we consider. It is not the answer, it is an answer. Because I'm tired of talking about what we should do. I want to do it. And that's why I'm online on Wednesday, because that's what we're doing. We're not talking about the curriculum, we're teaching the curriculum, and every day you can go back and you can work with your children or your community to be able to impart this information. And this is where we start. We'll get better in time. My technological skills will get better in time. I'm going to work very hard at it. But right now, this is what I got. This is how we're going to do it. And I'm just happy to be here in Sacramento.
Ooh, we like it.